Start some questions on the ethics series. I've got 40 of them to go through. And as I go through them, here's a couple of things that we can do with the multiple choice. There are certain strategies that writers of multiple choice questions use. And as a writer of, over 10,000 questions myself, there are certain types of strategies we follow. So I can read a multiple choice question sometimes and see exactly the strategy that's being followed. I almost know what the answer is. Without even understanding the contents, I can pick out the answer because I understand the strategy. I'll introduce you to those strategies as they come along. Not every question follows a strategy. I'd say about half the questions you get to are really legitimate questions. The other half, you can only ask a question so many ways before you have to start finding wrong answers. And that's what a multiple choice is, right? One is right, two are wrong. Coming up with the right answer is easy. Coming up with wrong answers that sound right, that's tough to do. So let's just jump right in here. Our first question, Smith, a research analyst with a brokerage firm, decides to change his recommendation for the common stock of Green Company from a buy to a sell. He mails this change in investment advice to all the firm's clients on Wednesday. The day after the mailing, a client calls with a buy order. That should be a buy, not but. A buy order for 500 shares of Green Company. In this circumstance, Green should A, accept the order, B, advise the customer of the change in recommendation before accepting the order, or C, not accept the order because it is contrary to the firm's recommendation. Now this goes to standard 3B. I'll write that in for you in case you want to refer to it. It goes to 3B. And there was a change in the recommendation. Somebody called in and placed an order contrary to the recommendation. Not accepting the order is not really an option. It's not really an option. So to say don't accept the order because it's contrary is to say that no client can ever place an order that's contrary. I think in reading this, you could just use some logic and say that can't possibly be right. Let me eliminate that. So it's either accept or advise the customer of the change. And we can remember discussing this in the standard. So the proper answer in this one is B. Which statement about a manager's use of client brokerage commissions violates the code and standards? A client may direct a manager to use that client's brokerage commissions to purchase goods and services for that client. Well, that sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Now, pay attention to the wording here. Which statement violates the code and standards? And this can be typically if you get a multiple choice question wrong that you know, and you review it later on, you'll find that, I read it wrong, or I wasn't thinking clearly. That you read A, you go, a client may direct a manager to use a client's brokerage commission person. You go, yeah, that's true. I remember that. That's the answer. But we're not looking for what's true. We're looking for what violates. So we're looking for a statement here that would be a false statement. That's a true statement. B, client brokerage commissions should be used to benefit the client and should be commensurate with the value of the brokerage and research services received. Does that sound true? Then it can't possibly be the answer. Because remember, we're looking for a violation, not an agreement. Let's cross that one out. We don't have to read the last one. There can only be one answer. We've eliminated A and B. I don't even have to read C to know it's true. I've just saved myself some time. But let's just read it anyways to confirm that it is the right one. Client brokerage commissions may be directed to pay for the investment manager's operating expenses. Well, I think we can clearly see that's wrong, but we're looking for the wrong answer. So that is right. So be careful about these kind of multiple choice questions where the question is worded such a way that you must find the wrong statement, and the wrong statement is the right answer. And that can be tricky. That if you ever do these mock exams and you review what you did wrong and you read them, you go, I knew that. I wasn't paying attention. That'll trip you up sometimes on 15, 20, 25 questions out of 240. That's significant. So make sure as you're reading, pay attention to the word that you have to find. I'm looking for something that violates. Highlight it. Draw your attention to it. Do something to make sure you don't forget that that's what you're looking for, and then head on. Jameson is a junior analyst with ABC. a brokerage and investment banking firm. ABC's M&A department has represented XYZ in all its acquisitions for the past 20 years. 2 of ABC's senior officers are directors of various XYZ subsidiaries. Jameson has been asked to write a research report on XYZ. What is the best course of action for her to follow? So what are we looking for? Best. Now, when we see something like this that says best, we may come across 3 statements that are true. Well, that's statement number 1, yeah, that's good. Statement number 2 could be good. Statement number 3 could be good. We're looking for the best, so you have to discern what would be the best course of action, not just the right course of action. Pay attention to the wording. She may write the report, but refrain from expressing any opinions because of the special relationship between the 2 companies. The next one, she should not write the report because the 2 ABC senior officers serve as directors for subsidiaries XYZ. So at this point, we can go ahead and cross that off, and let me explain why. Especially for the ethics ones, you can go ahead and do this. The message we got throughout the code and standards was the best way to not violate the code and standards is just to avoid getting into that situation to begin with. However, it's very clear, and the Institute understands that it's very clear that that's sometimes difficult to do. You're going to end up in situations that are going to be ripe with conflict. And if you can't avoid the conflict, then you must do certain things. It's not the standards are not there to tell you don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. They're there to tell you, look, if you're going to do this, recognize that it could be an issue and do these things along with it. So to say just don't write it is never an option. Just don't do this, just don't take that, just don't go here. You see answers worded that way with the ethics questions, you can eliminate them right away because they're typically wrong. They're typically wrong. So we're left with don't express any opinion, or C, may write the report if she discloses the special relationship with the company in the report. That's it right there. As soon as you start to see disclosure, that's typically the right way to go. That's the best way to go. And we've seen that a lot when we went through the standards, that if it's this, disclose. If it's that, disclose. Extra compensation with your employer, disclose, disclose, disclose. It's not a matter of don't. So the don't we can get rid of. The disclose, our eyes should be drawn towards there. The best course of action, disclose. All right, next question. Which of the following statements clearly conflicts? Okay, so I'm looking for a conflict. I want my eyes to be drawn to that. Clearly conflicts with the recommended procedures for compliance represented in the CFA Standards of Practice Handbook. Firms should disclose to clients the personal investing policies and procedures established for their employees. Does that conflict? No. Now notice again, we're looking for a conflict. This is written in the affirmative, and it's a true statement. We might be in a rush and under pressure of the exam. We read that, we go, oh yeah, that's right, and circle it. Be very careful about that. This is a true statement, so it doesn't conflict. Next one, prior approval must be obtained for the personal investment transactions of all employees. That sounds reasonable. So it doesn't sound like that conflicts. Besides, think about it this way. Getting prior approval, what statement could ever be written such that gaining prior approval is a conflict? Oh, you can't get prior approval, right? So we know that this and this cannot possibly be the answer. The last one must be the answer even without reading it. So let's find out. For confidentiality reasons, personal transactions and holdings should not be reported to employers. Well, right away we know that will conflict with the standards. Should not be reported to the employers unless mandated by regulatory organizations. There we go. Process of elimination, we got rid of 2. We paid attention to the word. We're looking for a negative response, and the negative response is the correct response. Bronson provides investment advice to the Board of Trustees of a private university endowment fund. The trustees have provided Bronson with the fund's financial information, including planned expenditures. Bronson receives a phone call on Friday afternoon from Murdoch, a prominent alumnus, requesting that Bronson fax him his comprehensive financial information about the fund. According to Murdoch, he has a potential contributor, but needs the information that day to close the deal and cannot contact any of the trustees. Convenient, isn't it? Based on the CFA Institute standards, Bronson should A. Send Murdoch the information because disclosure would benefit the client. B. Not send Murdoch the information to preserve confidentiality. Or C. Send Murdoch the information provided Bronson promptly notifies the trustees. Now the standard here is standard 3A. I'll write that down for you again, 3A. This is loyalty, prudence, and care. Loyalty, prudence, and care. So we have personal or proprietary information about the fund. Somebody is asking us to send us the information because of whatever reasons they give, right? All the reasons are going to be valid. Oh, and I can't get a hold of anybody. So you're left with a choice. We have a word here, send or not send. So we have send or not send. And the answer, of course, is not send. Sometimes breaking it down into two choices ends up being better. You might have three answers, and if you have three answers and they all say don't send, don't send, don't send, well, that doesn't help you. Now you have to find the reason why not to send. You have to be very clear about the reason. But this is a send, a not send, and a send. So what these answers are doing is it's making you select a choice between sending and not sending. That's your first choice. And as soon as you say preserve confidentiality, do not send, that sounds like the right way to go. There you go. Sorry about all the writing on the screen, by the way. Some of these questions can get very, very wordy. It's important to go through them. There's just no easier way to do it, and only in ethics do I have this problem with a lot of words on the screen. After that, most of the other sections, as you have seen, are fairly straightforward. Here's the thing. You're not going to get a really long question on the CFA. You're not going to get one that goes on for 12, 13, 14, 15 sentences. You got 90 seconds. They understand that you have 90 seconds. They're not going to give you a paragraph or two paragraphs to read to set the tone of the question. Typically, they'll be anywhere from 4 to 6 sentences. This would tend to be on the long side. Not that you wouldn't get this, but this would be pretty much the limit they try to put in there, just so that you know. Willier is the research analyst responsible for following Company X. All the information he has accumulated and documented suggests that the outlook for the company's new products is poor. So the stock should be treated as a weak hold. During lunch, however, Willier overhears a financial analyst from another firm who he respects offer opinions that conflict with his own forecasts and expectations. Upon returning to his office, he releases a strong buy recommendation to the public. Willier violated the standard by failing to distinguish between fact and opinion in his recommendation, violated the standard because he did not have a reasonable and adequate basis for his recommendation, or was in full compliance with the standard. So here is a question where I don't have to know what's going on. I'm going to show you the structure here. I don't have to know what's going on. I can just pick apart the structure and eliminate what is clearly wrong. I'm given two choices. I'm given a choice between violated and did not violate. So I have a violate and I have a not violate. That's a V. A violate and a not violate. The very first one follows a little trick of multiple choice that's easy. As soon as you start to recognize this little trick, you can eliminate questions right away. What is this one doing? Violated the standard by failing to distinguish between facts and opinions in his recommendation. Well, we don't know that. He just changed his recommendation. That doesn't mean that he's not distinguishing between fact and opinion. This is bringing in new information in the answer that is not in the question. When you see that happening, when the answer is bringing in new information that you cannot logically conclude from the question, you can eliminate it. And this is done several times in over the questions that we cover for ethics. It's done several times, so I'm going to point it out. Some are really blatant. And when you recognize these answers, that you can look and you say, okay, that's new information. As soon as you see that there's new information in the answer that was not in the question, you can cross it out, because you cannot answer this answer with new information. The question must stand on its own. The answer must be answerable from the facts of the question, not from the information given in the answer. This answers itself, so it has to be wrong. So now I just have to say, Did he violate the standard or was he in full compliance? Well, let's see what this violation is. He did not have a reasonable and adequate basis for his recommendation. That to me sounds logical. And I'm going to go with 7B. It's correct. And you can check 5A, standard 5A on this one, which is diligence and reasonable basis. Now, I'm giving you, every now and then, I'm going to give you the standard and the subsection of the standard. For level 1, you're not going to be expected to know section 3 sub C. You're not going to be expected to know that. As you go through the levels, yeah, you're going to have to know it a lot better. They expect you to really know this stuff. But at this level, it's really just familiarity. So you don't have to focus too much on, oh, was that 5A? Was it 5B? I forget. Don't worry about that. Don't let that go. Let's move on. An investment management firm has been hired by ETV Corporation to work on an additional public offering for the company. The firm's brokerage unit now has a sell recommendation on ETV, but the head of the investment banking department has asked the head of the brokerage unit, and I think we all know where this is going, right, to change the recommendation from sell to buy. According to the standards, the head of the brokerage unit would be permitted to. What are we looking for? We're looking for permission. What are we allowed to do? What would not violate? We're looking for an affirmative here. Increase the recommendation by no more than one increment. By no more than one increment. Well, that's new. We've never come across that anywhere in our readings or in the standard. So because that's new information, not from the question, but new information altogether, we've never come across this. We can just eliminate that. Place the company on a restricted list and give only factual information about the company. That sounds reasonable, so I'm going to hold that for now because we're looking for a true statement, right? Assign a new analyst to decide if the stock deserves a higher rating. Well, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound reasonable either. So we're going to go with B on this one. And this comes right down from standard 1B, which is independence and objectivity. Albert and Ty, who recently started their own investment advisory business, have registered to take the Level 3 CFA exams. Albert's business card reads Judy Albert, CFA Level 2. Ty has not put anything about the CFA designation on his business card, but promotional material that he designed for the business describes the CFA requirements and indicates that Ty participates in the CFA program and has completed Levels 1 and 2. According to the standards, A, Albert has violated, but Ty has not. B, Ty has violated, but Albert has not. Or C, both of them have violated. So, as we go through it, the easy one is Judy, CFA Level 2. You can't imply partial completion of a designation. You can't imply, partial designation. There is no such thing as I'm a Level 2 CFA. Either you are a CFA charter holder or you are a CFA candidate, period. You can't say I'm a Level 2. It's meaningless. It's one charter. That's all it is. It's one charter, and you have to earn the whole thing. There's no piecemeal to it. So you can't say, it would be like somebody saying I'm a third-year lawyer. Well, no, you're not. You're a third-year law student, but you're not a lawyer. You're not a third-year lawyer. You're a third-year law student, right? So same thing. So we know that Albert is in violation. So we can get rid of B. As you were reading it, you probably got to CFA Level 2. You said, oh, okay, that's a violation right there. So you knew that this was gone. Has Ty violated? And this one's tricky. I'll admit this one here is a little bit tricky. So let's go through it and see what he's done. He's not put anything about CFA on his card. Okay. Promotional material describes the CFA requirements. Nothing wrong with that. Indicates that Ty participates in the program. Nothing wrong with that because you can refer to yourself as a CFA candidate. So there's nothing wrong with that. And it says that he's completed Levels 1 and 2. That could be the tricky part. That'll trip you up there. He's not suggesting that he has partial designation. He's not saying he's a Level 2 CFA. He's saying, I participate in the CFA program and I've completed this much of it so far. That's all he's saying. That's perfectly okay. You can say where you are in the process. You just can't claim that you have a certain status because of it by saying I'm a Level 2 CFA. There's no such thing. So Ty has not violated the standard. So in this particular case, A is the correct answer. This is standard 7B, reference to CFA Institute, the CFA designation, and the CFA program. Scott works for a regional brokerage firm. He estimates that ABC will increase its dividend by $1.50 over the next year. The increase is contingent on pending legislation that would offer ABC a tax break. The U.S. representative for ABC's district has told Scott that passage seems likely, but may fail if deficit concerns outweigh the process. ABC has made no public statement about a change in dividend policy. Scott writes, the stock should rise $8 due to a dividend increase, thus resulting in a 15% return at current prices, according to the standards. Now, before we even look at the answer, I want to draw your attention to something. When you're giving quotes for a reason. There's information in those quotes. The answer will rely most likely on what's in the quotes. So what are we looking for? It says according to the standards, so we don't know what we're looking for, but let's read. Scott violated the standards because he used material inside information. Scott violated the standards because he failed to separate opinion from fact, and Scott violated the standards by basing his research on uncertain predictions of future government action. So in all cases, violated. So we know he violated the standards. Now in this case, there's no decision whether he did or didn't. He did. Why? And it's helpful in this situation if we can eliminate some things, and right away we can eliminate C. Why? He's basing his research on uncertain predictions. By definition, all predictions are uncertain, period. All predictions. It doesn't matter what you're doing. All predictions are uncertain. You have to base something on all research, especially if it's projecting into the future, is based on uncertain projections. I'm going to get rid of that one. So it's a matter of used material inside information or failed to separate opinion from fact. So I'm going to be drawn to the quotes again. The stock should rise $8 due to a dividend increase. He's stating this. He's not saying, up here it says he estimates that the dividend will increase. Here he's saying due to a dividend increase. He's going from an estimate, a thought, an opinion, to a fact, and he's not separating the two. So always pay attention. You got some quotes in here. If you're stuck between two, reread what's between quotes, and it'll help you pick one out. And right here, it is B, 10B. And this goes to standard 5. B, which is communication with clients and prospective clients. Which one of the following actions will help to ensure the fair treatment of brokerage firm clients when a new investment recommendation is made? Informing all people in the firm in advance that a recommendation is to be disseminated. Distributing recommendations to institutional clients prior to individual accounts. Now, as we read these, you can come across ones where you go, well, I know that's not it. And you'd be right if you say, no, that doesn't sound right. Because you're showing preference to one versus another. Everything we've read, that doesn't sound right. Let's just get rid of that one. And minimizing the time between the decision and the dissemination of a recommendation. Well, that sounds familiar. Let's look at this first one again. Informing all people in the firm. There's an extreme word. Whenever we see extreme words, all, none, the answer is typically wrong. Okay, so whenever you're looking at answers and there's an extreme word in there, all of it, none of it, never, always, those kind of words, be suspicious. I'm not saying it's always wrong. I'm saying it's typically wrong. Be suspicious. So if you had to guess, if you're in a position where you go, I don't know. Look for the extreme words. This has extreme words. Inform all the people in the firm. Okay, that's got an extreme word. I'm going to go ahead and say C. Let's see if that worked out for us. C is the correct answer. This is standard 3B, and this is fair dealing. And if you go back to 3B and read, you'll see that minimizing one of the recommendations, minimize the time between decision and dissemination. It says nothing about telling everybody. In fact, it's saying keep it quiet. Don't tell anybody. But that extreme word should highlight it to you. So in this situation here, without knowing very much, we could say, well, we got to B, and it's showing priority of one over the other. I think that's wrong. Your gut feel would be that that's wrong. And if you had to guess between the other two, take the extreme option out, pick the last one, move on. And it turns out that you would have been right by following that strategy there. The mosaic theory holds that an analyst, A, violates the code and standards if the analyst fails to have knowledge and comply with all applicable laws. B, can use material public information and non-material public information in the analyst's analysis. Or C, should use all available and relevant information in support and investment recommendation. Now, this is a very basic multiple choice question. It doesn't rely on you being able to figure anything out. It relies purely on memorization. There is no other way to do this. You must memorize this one, or you must rely on memorization and remember it, and here's why. A, B, and C are all true statements. On their own, without the question, A is a true statement, B is a true statement, and C is a true statement. So your answer to this question turns on, do you know what mosaic theory is? Plain and simple. This is the most basic type of multiple choice question that can be asked because it relies on just straight old remembering. That's all. And there's no trick to answering these. You pretty much just got to know the answer. You can use material public information, that's significant public information, or non-material, non-public information, which is non-significant, non-public information, and through your own brilliance go, there's a dot here, a dot here, a dot here, and here. If I connect the dots, oh, look what I found. Now, you may find something that is extremely important, that is known inside the company, but you figured it out all on your own. That's called mosaic theory. You're free to publish that. You're free to talk about that, and you're free to trade on that. There's mosaic theory. Jürgen is a portfolio manager. I think the name is German, I don't know. Is a portfolio manager. One of her firm's clients has told her that he will compensate her beyond that provided by her firm on the basis of capital appreciation of his portfolio each year. Jürgen should turn down the additional compensation because it will result in conflicts with the interests of other clients. Turn down the additional compensation because it will create undue pressure on her to achieve strong short-term performance. Or obtain permission from her employer prior to accepting the compensation arrangement. So there's two options, turn down or accept. Well, let's see the first one. Turn down because it will result in a conflict of interest. Again, the standards aren't saying you must avoid all conflicts of interest. It never says that. It says the best policy is to avoid them, but while in them, fully disclose. We can get rid of that because, again, we have an extreme alternative. Turn it down. Here it says turn down the compensation because it will create undue pressure, or obtain permission prior to accepting the compensation arrangement. If you recall, when we did this particular standard, this is from 4B, additional compensation arrangements, that you are free to accept additional compensation arrangements. You are free to do that as long as it doesn't disadvantage another client and you inform your employer. Now, your employer may say, that doesn't sound like a good deal. Well, then you have to live with what your employer says. But C would be the proper answer in this particular case. This is starting to bring in an assumption that you cannot make. You cannot write a multiple choice question where the answer relies on you making an assumption. This is saying the compensation will create undue pressure on her. We don't know that it's going to create undue pressure on her. We're assuming that it's going to create undue pressure. Maybe it won't. We don't know. This is new information. This is just new. Now, if there was something in the body of the question that suggested that there was a concern for that, then great. But that's brand new information. It's making an assumption in the answer that is not present in the question. This on its own, I would be tempted to eliminate this answer if I have to guess. If I don't know, I would be tempted to eliminate this one because I'd say, well, we don't know that. We're assuming something. The answer is leading us to an assumption that's not valid based on what we've been given. The dots don't connect in this particular case. I'd be left with C even if I wasn't sure what the answer was. So here's a big, messy, long question. Straight up, you'll never get this on the CFA on level 1. You'll never get this. You'll just never see anything like this. So the question is, well, why am I including it if you're never going to see it? Well, let's see if we can pull it apart. There's a lot going on here. If you can answer these big, fat questions, the shorter ones should be more direct and easy. So let's go and see if we can figure this out. Besides, once you get to level 2, there are no questions there's no 240 standalone questions. There's a big, long reading section that you have to do, and then there's usually about 12 to 15 questions associated with that section, so you better get used to this. One of the discretionary accounts managed by Farnsworth is the Jones Corporation Employee Profit Sharing Plan. Jones, the company president, recently asked Farnsworth to vote the shares in the profit sharing plan in favor of a slate of directors nominated by the Jones Corporation and against the directors sponsored by a dissident stockholder group. Let's pull apart what we know right there. When you're reading long paragraphs like this, I'm going to show you two tricks, really. I should have showed you the first trick first, but I can't. And you'll see why when I show it to you. So what you want to do is every now and then stop and get it through in your head. Okay, what's this guy doing? He's running an employee profit sharing plan. Who's his client? His client is the employee, not the corporation. The president comes along and says, hey, listen, why don't you vote the shares for my directors and ignore this other guy? So there is a potential problem right there. Let's keep going. Farnsworth does not want to lose this account because he directs all the account's trades to a brokerage firm that provides Farnsworth with useful information about tax-free investments. Although this information is not of value in managing the Jones account, it does help in managing several other accounts. Let's full stop right there. We have another issue going on in here. We're getting a soft dollar relationship with this broker because the Jones Corporation is a big enough account that by sending it through this broker is giving us interesting and valuable stuff that's valuable for us somewhere else, but not for the Jones account. We got maybe a potential problem brewing there. The brokerage firm providing this information also offers the lowest commissions for trades and provides the best execution. Aha, full stop, I have no problem. This eliminates any other soft dollar issue right there. Why? Because in the absence of the soft dollar, I'm in the right place. Lowest commissions, provide best execution, I have no issue with this. So I've eliminated that problem. This is a very important skill to have. Is as you're reading to be able to say, well, there's a problem, there it's eliminated, and match up the information. Let's keep going. Farnsworth investigates the director issue, concludes that the management-nominated slate is better than the dissident group slate, and votes accordingly. Aha. So votes accordingly, agrees with management, so there's no issue there. I've come across no problem here. So let's have a look at the at our solution. So just to be clear, what I did here is as I came up against a potential problem, I made a note. As I solved the problem, I crossed it out. And whatever I'm left with is the only problem left. So there might be 5 problems and 4 solutions buried into a paragraph, and as long as you can match them all off, we're good. We have no problem. Let's have a look at the answers that we're expected to choose from. All right, so Farnsworth, let's have a look at what we have. We have a violated, did not violate, and violated. I know my answer. I don't even have to read them. Did not violate. Farnsworth did not violate. Why? Because I've eliminated every problem. Let's just check to see if we had that right. Violated the standards in voting the shares in the manner requested by Jones, but not in directing trades to the brokerage firm. Well, we've already cleared off those 2 issues. That's not it. Violated the standards in directing trades to the brokerage firm, but not in voting the shares as requested. We've handled those. Now, go back and reread that thing again, and let's not highlight anything. As we got to each of these, you go, okay, so you'd read this, and then you'd have to go back to the body of the text and say, okay, is that true? Let's see. But by highlighting the problem, however you want to highlight it, put a number 1, find another problem, number 2, find another problem, number 3, find a solution, put a -1. 1 and -1 cancel out. If you can do that, match off all the problems, this kind of question becomes easy because in the end, what did we say? Didn't violate the standards. As I read, I got a violate, did not violate, I'm done, move on, next. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? There's only so many ways, by the way, to write a multiple choice question. There's only so many strategies you can use. It's actually quite difficult to write 240 multiple choice questions that push, I'm trying to find the right words here, that don't repeat certain patterns. So once you can find the pattern in these multiple choice questions, they become fairly easy to do. So there are 2 skills you're trying to build here. Number 1 is the knowledge base. You You really should just be able to answer these questions from knowledge, but if you don't, the second skill is test-taking skill. You have to develop your skill at taking tests, which means understanding how these questions are written and understanding the strategies in being able to write these questions. If you want to understand multiple choice questions, I'll tell you what, sit down on a Saturday afternoon and try to write out 20 questions. Watch how difficult it actually is to write out good questions. And once you start writing out good questions, you'll start to see how other people have written them. It becomes easier to spot questions. This one was easy. Brown works for an investment counseling firm. Green, a new client of the firm, is meeting with Brown for the first time. Green used another firm for years, but has switched to Brown's firm. After a few minutes of getting acquainted, Brown explains to Green that she has discovered a highly undervalued stock that offers large potential gains. She recommends that Green purchase the stock. Brown has committed a violation of the standards. So there's no question here. They have committed a violation of the standards. And if you were reading along and you said, that's wrong, you know exactly what the answer is at this point. What should she have done differently? So what are we looking for? We're not looking for what the violation was. We're looking for what she should have done differently. So which means that going into the answers, we would have to know what the violation is before we get to the answers to be able to recognize this. Determine Green's needs, objectives, and tolerance for risk before making a recommendation of any type. That sounds pretty good. That's my answer so far. Let me read B. Brown should have thoroughly explained the characteristics of the company to Green, including the characteristics of the industry in which the company operates. Well, you don't know if that didn't happen. That's new information. We don't know. We can't get that. Recommends that Green purchase stock. Brown explains to Green that she has discovered a highly undervalued stock that offers large potential gains. We don't know how much explaining was done or how little. So this one, I would read this one going, I don't know if that's true. That's not stated in there. It didn't say that in 30 seconds she gave a recommendation saying, this is a good one, buy, don't worry about the details. Now, if that were in here, maybe. I'm going to eliminate that one. Brown should have explained her qualifications, including her education, training, experience, and the meaning of the CFA designation. That doesn't sound right either. This sounds absolutely right. You got to find out their needs, their objectives, their tolerance for risk before making any recommendation. Yeah, it might be a great stock, but not for somebody 92. We don't know how old Green is. We don't know what Green does. There you go. The answer to this one was A. This was from Standard 3C. 3C was suitability. Jerry recommends the purchase of a mutual fund that invests solely in long-term U.S. Treasury bonds. He makes the following statements to his clients. Number 1, the payment of the bonds is guaranteed by the U.S. government. Therefore, the default risk of the bonds is virtually zero. Sounds like just a statement of fact to me. Number 2, if you invest in the mutual fund, you will earn a 10% rate of return each year for the next several years based on historical performance of the market. That doesn't sound very cool. So the question is, did Jerry's statements violate the code and standards? And we have A, neither did. B is only statement 1, and C is only statement 2. Well, we know statement 1 was just a statement of fact. So I don't think that we can choose that one. Statement number 2 clearly violated the standards. You can't promise a return on anything going forward. In fact, the big disclaimer, the main disclaimer is historical returns are no guarantee of future performance. That's written everywhere, right? So we can't say that neither statement violated. We have to go with C. And this is a standard 1C, misrepresentation. Paul, a portfolio manager for ABC, was promoted to that position 3 years ago. Bates, his supervisor, is responsible for reviewing Paul's portfolio account transactions and his monthly personal stock transactions. Paul has been using a broker named Pedro for the portfolio account. Pedro gives Paul lower buy and higher sell rates for stocks, in which Pedro's firm makes a market in his personal account, but not for the portfolio account or other investors. Paul only files monthly reports with Bates for personal transactions only when none are executed. There's a whole myriad of problems going on here. He's not filing the monthly reports every month that he should be doing. Further to that, Bates, the supervisor, is allowing him to get away with it. So there's a problem on both sides. This is another bit of an issue here as well. Paul is benefiting from this relationship. He's getting lower buy and higher sell rates in stocks in which Pedro's firm makes a market, but the portfolio account is not getting that, nor other investors. So you might be tempted to say, well, but no client is being disadvantaged here. It's still a violation of a standard. So we got a couple here. Let's see what the question is. Which of the following is most likely to be a violation of the code and standards? Paul failed to disclose to his employer his personal transactions. Well, that is a violation, but we're looking for most likely. Let's see if there's something more likely. That's pretty big. Paul owned the same securities as those of his clients. That's not really a problem. You're allowed to, but you just got to do it the right way, so we can get rid of that one. Bates allowed Paul to use Pedro as his broker for personal trades. That's okay. You can use Pedro. Using Pedro is not the problem. It's the benefit Pedro is providing while you're using him that's the problem. But this statement here, there's no problem. Process of elimination. Paul failed to disclose to his employer his personal transactions. So there's a couple here. This one here goes to standard 1D, misconduct. The use of the broker and getting those sweet deals, 3A, is loyalty, prudence, and care. And you can't leave Bates off the hook. Bates is in violation of one of the standards as well, standard 4C, which is the responsibilities of supervisors. Which of the following is a correct, let me underline that, statement of a member's or candidate's duty under the code and standards? A correct statement. In the absence of applicable law or other regulatory requirements, the code and standards govern the member candidate's actions. Yes, we can remember that. That seems to be a correct statement. We can stop. The question is very straightforward. It doesn't say the best or most likely. It says which of the following is a correct statement. We've gotten to a correct statement. So the other two cannot be correct if this is correct. But we'll read them just in case one seems more correct and we might question ourselves here. But this is a fairly correct statement. Let's keep going. A member candidate is required to comply only with applicable. Well, as soon as we see that, again, there's extreme wording, right? I can stop the sentence right there. Believe me, I've written so many of these that when I need a wrong answer, I bring out those words: only, all, never. Those are red flag words, so we can get rid of that. A member candidate who trades securities in a market where no applicable local laws or exchange rules regulate the use of material non-public information may take investment action based on that information. Well, there should be extra words in here. The MC may take investment action. Well, clearly that doesn't sound right either, right? So A, we're just looking for the correct statement. Getting rid of B was easy. As soon as I get to the word is required to comply only with that, stop. I'm done right there. Ward is scheduled to visit the corporate headquarters of Evans Industries. Ward expects to use the information he finds there to complete his research report on Evans stock. Ward learns that Evans plans to pay for all of Ward's expenses for the trip, including costs of meals, hotel room, and air transportation. Which of the following actions would be the best course for Ward to take under the code and standards? So we're looking for the best of the three. A, accept the expense paid trip and write an objective report. Well, okay, let's move on. Let's see if there's something better. Pay for all travel expenses, including costs of meals and incremental items. Well, that sounds better than accept the expense paid trip. C, accept the expense paid trip, but disclose the value of the services accepted in the report. Well, again, what if you're writing a report that's very, very favorable to the company and it's true? It's absolutely true. And you're disclosing, oh, by the way, they treated us like kings. I mean, we got this, that. The value of everything, if I had to pay for myself, would be X amount of dollars. Suddenly, I'm a reader. I don't really know if you're objective anymore. I don't know if that's an independent assessment. So I would say that doesn't sound very well. This doesn't sound as good as B. It says the best. Which one is the best, right? B is correct. Standard 1, B, independence and objectivity. Which of the following statement is correct under the code and standards? A. Members and candidates are prohibited from undertaking independent practice in competition with their employer. B. Written consent from the employer is necessary to permit independent practice that could result in compensation or other benefits in competition with a member or candidate's employer. Or C. Member or candidates are prohibited from making arrangements or preparations to go into a competitive business before terminating their relationship with their employer. So they all sound fairly decent. We're looking for a correct statement. So let's see if we can find a problem in some of these. Members and candidates are prohibited from undertaking independent practice in competition. Look at the third one. Members and candidates are prohibited from making arrangements or preparations. I'm seeing strong words in two of them, but that word is missing in the third. If I got to guess, I'm going to take the third one. I've got two very strong words here. Prohibited. Here's the thing. We know they're not prohibited from making arrangements. You're free to make arrangements. So we know that this is not correct. I'm going to go with the word prohibited here, and I'm going to say that's probably not correct either. But you're not prohibited from undertaking independent practice in competition with your employer. You can go ahead and do that if you have the permission. It's not like it's a prohibition no matter what. So again, strong words. I'm going to eliminate two, take the third one. Turns out B is correct. Smith is a financial analyst with XYZ brokerage firm. She's preparing a purchase recommendation on J&I Corp. Which of the following situations is most likely, let me underline that, to represent a conflict of interest? So I'm looking for something that's not going to be pleasant. For Smith, that would have to be disclosed. So as I read these, I'm looking for a conflict. I'm looking for a negative in these statements. Smith frequently purchases items produced by J&I. That can't possibly be right. Think of an analyst. Think of all the things that analyst purchases. And if you can't cover the companies of the stuff you purchase, toothpaste, soap, shampoo. Who would ever cover companies that sell toothpaste, soap, and shampoo? Only an analyst who doesn't shower or brush his teeth. That's the only analyst that would cover it. That's not a world I want to live in, right? So that can't possibly be right. XYZ holds in its own account a substantial common stock position in J&I. That's a biggie. So that's a winner so far. Let's see if C is even better. Smith's brother-in-law is a supplier to J&I. Well, that relationship is kind of one or two removed, and it's not really a direct relationship. It's not an insider. It's simply a supplier to J&I. You can't really start saying, well, that should be disclosed, because then, well, what if your neighbor works somewhere? What if your neighbor's wife's father works for the... So at some point, you got to cut it off. Now, if your wife were the CEO of J&I, you got to disclose that, right? Chances are you shouldn't even be covering the company at that point. But if I got to answer this question, I'm answering B. Mary tells a prospective client. Now, pay attention here. What do we have? Where's our closing quotes? We have quotes. Chances are the information we want is going to be in between these quotes. So let's go. I may not have a long-term track record yet, but I'm sure you will be very pleased with my recommendations and service. In the 3 years that I have been in business, my equity-oriented clients have averaged a total return of more than 26% a year. Doesn't seem like there's a problem in there, right? That's a statement. Okay. The statement is true, but Mary only has a few clients, and one of her clients took a large position in a penny stock against Mary's advice and realized a huge gain. The gain resulted in over 26% performance. Without it, the average would have been 8%. Has Mary violated the code and standards? The statement is true, but it is this one position which she advised against that did the heavy lifting. Without it, she would have been at 8. So the question is that a violation of the code and standards? Well, we have a no and 2 yeses. No, plain and simple. Yes, the statement misrepresents Mary's performance, or yes, the code and standards prohibit a member or candidate from guaranteeing future results. That's not what she's doing there. We can clearly get rid of this one. We're down to a 50-50. Is it a violation or is it not a violation? In this particular respect, if we go back and read Standard 1C, misrepresentation, this is misrepresentation. Because if you remove it, you're at 8%. It was a penny stock, and it was something she advised against to begin with. So she's taking credit for something that she's not even responsible for. So I'm more apt to say that we've got B. The statement misrepresents Mary's performance. An investment banking department of a brokerage firm often receives material, non-public information that could have considerable value if used in advising the firm's brokerage clients. In order to conform to the code and standards, which of the following is the best policy for the brokerage firm? A. Permanently prohibit, well, see, I don't like that word, both buy and sell recommendations of the stocks of clients of the investment banking department. I don't like that word. I'm apt to just, every time I see that word, I just want to do that. Establish physical and informational barriers within the firm to prevent the exchange of information between the investment banking and brokerage operations. We're looking for best policy. So far, there's my winner. C. Monitor the exchange of information between the investment banking department and the brokerage operation. Well, that's pretty good too. But which is the stronger one? We're looking for the best. This is physical and informational barriers. This is just monitoring information. I'll go with B. We circle B. And our answer here is B. Stewart has been hired by Goodner Industries to manage its pension fund. Stewart's duty of loyalty, prudence, and care is owed to A. the management of Goodner, B. the participants and beneficiaries of the pension plan, or C. the shareholders of Goodner. And we've learned this, that you have to determine who your client is. Who's the client here? If you're managing the pension fund, who are the ultimate beneficiaries of that? The participants and beneficiaries of the pension plan. That's who Stewart owes a duty of loyalty, prudence, and care to. That was an easy one. That was right over the plate. Which of the following statements is a stated purpose of disclosure in Standard 6C referral fees? A stated purpose of disclosure. Why to disclose? Disclosure will allow the client to request discounted service fees. That does not sound right at all. Disclosure will help the client evaluate any possible partialities shown in the recommendation of services. That one sounds good. Disclosure means advising a prospective client about the referral arrangement once a formal client relationship has been established. That does not sound proper at all. You have to give the client the information up front, not after the fact. So I'm going to go ahead and say B is the stated purpose, and that's exactly what it is. Rose, a portfolio manager for a local investment advisory firm, is planning to sell a portion of her personal investment portfolio to cover the costs of his child's academic tuition. I'm mixing up my pronouns here, his and her. You can go ahead and put a her in there. She wants to sell a portion of her holdings in ABC, but her firm has recently upgraded the stock to a strong buy. Which of the following describes Rose's options under the code and standards? A. Rose cannot sell, strong wording. I'm going to go ahead and cross that out. The moment I see strong wording, I get rid of it. But we'll read it. Cannot sell the shares because she would be improperly benefiting from the inflated recommendation. And while the back end seems reasonable, that's right, they recommended a buy, it pushes the price up, and now she's going to sell, should be benefiting from that, so she cannot sell. Well, that cannot possibly be right. I'm using extreme words to point out extreme words, right? I'm just going to get rid of it. She's free to sell once the firm is properly informed. That sounds reasonable. She can sell, but only when a client of the firm places an order to buy those shares. That doesn't sound right at all. So I'm going to go ahead and say B. This one was, again, if you understand the strategy of writing these things, these are extreme statements. Rose cannot sell. That any statement like that cannot possibly be right. When in doubt, look for extreme wording and just eliminate it. It makes your job easier if you have to guess. Okay, let's have a look. We've been doing some fairly straightforward questions. Let's have a look at a bit of a curveball and something I think is just an awful question. But it is a question in the database, and so I'm going to use it. But it's awful, and I'll show you why it's awful. You can easily be right and get this wrong on an exam. A former hedge fund manager, Jackman, has decided to launch a new private wealth management firm. From his prior experiences, he believes the new firm needs to achieve $1 million in assets under management in the first year. Jackman offers a $10,000 incentive to any advisor who joins his firm with a minimum of $200,000 in committed investments. Jackman places notices on the opening of the opening on several industry web portals and career search sites. Which of the following is correct according to the code and standards? A member candidate is eligible for the new position if they can bring that level of funding and if the member candidate discloses the incentive fee. Okay, let's leave that one. Let's move on to the next one. So far, that's the winner until I see something better. A member candidate may not accept employment right away. I don't like that whole thing. Since the offer violates the code and standards. Well, the offer itself doesn't violate the code and standards, so we can get rid of that. We got a choice between two. Let's read number 3. A member candidate is not eligible for the new position unless they are currently unemployed because soliciting clients of the member candidate's current employer is prohibited. Well, while that is true, soliciting clients from the member candidate's current employer is prohibited. That's true. You don't necessarily have to be unemployed. You could have a job. You could be with your employer, and you could switch to this new firm without ever touching any of your current employers and still bring the $200,000. So to say that you're not eligible unless you're currently unemployed, I don't like that idea. A sounds like the right answer to me. And nowhere in here does it say that the person is soliciting any clients. Here's the problem. This is the wrong answer. The right answer is C. According to CFA, the right answer is C, because they're making the assumption in here that this member or candidate who is eligible for the new position is employed. It doesn't say anything about their status or anything. They're just making the condition that they are employed and then jumping to the conclusion that if they're employed, they're going to bring a current customer and that only someone unemployed would not solicit a client because they're not working. The answer would be C. In this case, I would have a real beef with the answer to that question. I would have a real solid beef with the answer to that question because it's a very poor question. Now, it's in the database, and it probably doesn't get used for exams because it is probably a troubling question. These troubling questions, they don't go away. They just circle around in databases. But be prepared on the exam that you may get a question like this where you could be absolutely right. Your logic is rock solid, and you wouldn't have led to any other conclusion and still get it wrong. That's kind of just a drawback of the exam, is that unfortunately these questions are written by humans. Humans are fallible. Sometimes questions can be interpreted several different ways. Sometimes the writer knows exactly what they mean in each of the sentences, but are missing a keyword here and there to really let everyone else know what it means. This is a crap question. We got another wordy question here. Carter works for Invest Today, a local asset management firm. A broker that provides Carter with proprietary research through client brokerage arrangements is offering a new trading service. The broker is offering low-fee, execution-only trades to complement its traditional full-service execution and research trades. To entice Carter and other asset managers to send additional business its way, the broker will apply the commission paid on the new service towards satisfying the brokerage commitment of the prior full-service arrangement. Nice. Carter has always been satisfied with the execution provided on the full-service trades, and the new low-fee trades are comparable to the fees of other brokers currently used for the accounts that prohibit soft dollar arrangements. So, after all that, let's see. Carter can trade for his accounts that prohibit soft dollar arrangements under the new low-fee trading scheme. Okay, so far we've only read one, and if we only read one, that's the one, right? Let's go on to the next one. And what we want to do when we get questions like this that, could go either way, we're going to try to eliminate our way to the answer first and then see if we have to answer it. I can't eliminate this one yet. I don't want to go through the logic of it. Remember, you got 90 seconds. So you can sit and think about this and scratch your head, or you can say, you know what, I may be wasting a lot of time here when I can eliminate the next two easily. And hence, that will be my answer. So let's just run through them, see if we can eliminate them. Carter cannot use the new trading scheme because the commissions are prohibited by the soft dollar restrictions of the accounts. Okay. Carter should trade only through, extreme word, I'm going to get rid of it. Done. See how quick that is? I can get rid of that. It says here, should trade only through the new low-fee scheme and should increase his trading volume to meet his required commitment. That doesn't sound right, and I don't like those extreme words. Only trade through them. No. So the question becomes this, that you have accounts that prohibit soft dollar arrangements. Is that the problem in this case? The reason we have these prohibitions on soft dollar trades is because it's the soft dollar trade that brings you in because you get all these soft dollars, but then at a higher commission. You're using client brokerage for your own benefit. But in this case, the new service being offered is comparable to all the other ones out there. It's comparable to all the other ones out there. So I would be more apt to pick A based on what I've read. The other one here says Carter cannot use the new trading scheme because the commissions are prohibited by the soft dollar restrictions of the accounts. Well, this here is implying that you cannot use them at all anywhere because of the soft dollar restrictions. If it was more clear, you cannot use the new trading scheme for those accounts, then I'm iffy. It's like, well, I don't know. But this one, if I read it carefully, I can eliminate that. I'm more comfortable choosing A. Let's find out what our answer here is. A, standard 3A. 3A, loyalty, prudence, and care. And I'll read to you what it says here. Carter believes the broker offers effective execution at a fee that is comparable with those of other brokers, so he is free to use the broker for all accounts. Well, we have another book to read here. Rule has worked as a portfolio manager for a large investment management firm for the past 10 years. Rule earned his CFA charter last year and has decided to open his own investment management firm. After leaving his current employer, Rule creates some marketing material for his new firm. He states in the material, I love it when there's quotes because I know that something interesting is within the quote. So I'll just circle the two ends. In earning the CFA charter, a highly regarded credential in the investment industry, I further enhanced the portfolio management skills learned during my professional career. While completing the examination process in 3 consecutive years, I consistently received the highest possible scores on the topics of ethics, alternative investments, and portfolio management. Well, that can't possibly be right. We know that it doesn't break down like that. We don't even get a score. You get a pass-fail. You can get 100%, the highest score ever. You'll never know. You'll never, ever know. And it's not broken down by section. You don't know how much you score in each section. It's not the GMATs, right? Has Rule violated Standard 7B, reference to CFA Institute, CFA designation, and the CFA program in his marketing material? So here's our answers. We have a yes, and a no. Rule did not violate. We know that he did something wrong. We know that because you can't say what he said. We just don't know what it is. So we're going to get rid of this. Yes, he did something wrong. In stating he completed the exams in 3 years, no, you can go ahead and say that. You can say that you did it in 3 consecutive years. So I'm going to choose B without even reading it. I know right away, but we'll read it. Yes, in stating that he received the high scores in selected topics, we were able to pick that out. But we can get there directly and say yes, or we can look at other ones and eliminate them and end up where we are. We've got time to do that kind of thing. Remember, you can attack it 2 ways. Answer it directly or answer it indirectly by eliminating what clearly doesn't fit. Stafford is a portfolio manager for a specialized real estate mutual fund. Her firm clearly describes in the fund's prospectus its soft dollar policies. Stafford decides that entering the CFA program will enhance her investment decision-making skills and decides to use the fund's soft dollar account to pay the registration and exam fees for the CFA program. Which of the following statements is most likely correct? All right, let's look at our choices. Remember, we're looking for the most correct statement, the most correct. So we might have a couple that, yeah, I can agree with that, and I can, but we're looking for the most now. Stafford did not violate the code and standards because the prospectus informed investors of the fund's soft dollar policies. Well, while that statement was made, that investors could see the soft dollar policy. Soft dollar is for research that benefits clients. So this clearly is not correct. Stafford violated the code and standards because improving her investment skills is not a reasonable use of the soft dollar account. Okay, so far that's my winner. Unless C is really stupid, that's my winner. Let's read C. Stafford violated the code and standards because the CFA program does not meet the definition of research allowed to be purchased with brokerage commissions. That is the most correct. It's a violation of the code and standards. Both of them say violation of the code and standards. But it's not so much that the reasonableness of the expenses in question, but that it's not research. It's very clear on that point. So we're going to have to go with C in this particular case. Now this one here, this is one of the harder ones. So if you read this and go, I probably would have got that wrong. Don't worry, it is one of the harder ones. What will help you, remember now, is if you can eliminate at least one, you improve your odds from 33% guessing at 33 to 50%. And remember now, if you're going to guess the same answer each time. Either all A's, all B's, all C's. Don't chase around the board. But if you can work with this process of elimination, you can usually get to the one answer that makes sense. And always remember, am I looking for the least likely, the most likely, the best, the worst? What am I looking for? And keep that in mind as you read, because you may get to two statements that, well, those are very close. Good. Which one's better? Long has been asked to be the keynote speaker at an upcoming investment conference. The event is being hosted by one of the third-party investment managers currently being used by his pension fund. The manager offers to cover all travel and conference costs for Long and make the conference registrations free for 3 additional members of his investment management team. To ensure that the conference obtains the best speakers, the host firm has arranged for an exclusive golf outing for the day following the conference on a local championship caliber course. Which of the following is least likely to violate Standard 1B? We're looking for least likely. And Standard 1B is independence and objectivity. I think we could have came to that from the body of what we're looking at here. So let's look at our options. A, Long may accept only the offer to have his conference-related expenses paid by the host firm. I mean, he is a keynote speaker, right? So I like that one. That seems least likely so far. And when I come across these most likely, least likely, as soon as I read A, if it sounds logical, that's my answer until something better comes along, and that's sort of how I do it. So A's the winner so far. Let's have a look at B. Long may accept the offer to have his conference-related expenses paid and may attend the exclusive golf outing at the expense of the hosting firm. That doesn't sound as good as the first one. This adds another layer of, well, that still, that might bring my independence and objectivity into question. The first one and the second one are the same, except the second one adds this. Since it adds this extra thing, I still like A. Done. Let's go on to C. Long may accept the entire package, and I'm going to stop right there because we went from just the conference to the conference and golf to take everything. And it's asking us least likely. So in least likely, the least likely way is not accept anything at all. So the least we accept, the better off we are. We can go with A on that one. Andrews, a private wealth manager, is conducting interviews for a new research analyst. One of the candidates is Wright, an analyst with a local investment bank. During the interview, while Wright is describing his analytical skills, he mentions a current merger in which his firm is acting as the advisor. Andrews has heard rumors of a possible merger between the two companies, but no releases have been made by the companies concerned. Which of the following actions by Andrews is least likely? Always make sure that your eyes are drawn to that. If, again, I repeat this so many times, you're sick of it, I'm sure, but if you're going to make a mistake on a question that you know the answer to, it's going to be because you didn't read it properly. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do. If you're going to be wrong because you're wrong. Those you can live with. These you can't. Least likely a violation of the code and standards. And here, the thing that we're dealing with is something called material non-public information, standard 3A. And again, for this exam, you do not need to know chapter and verse, 3A, 3B, 5C. You don't need to know that. You will at some point. So you should get used to identifying the standard each time. All right, so our options are waiting until the next day before trading on the information to allow time for it to become public. We can get rid of that one right away because you're waiting for the next day for it to become public. Nowhere in that description did we say it was going to be public the very next day. Nowhere in there. So this is new information brought into the answer that is not part of the question. That's a clear sign that it can be eliminated. Notifying all investment managers in his firm, yeah, that's exactly what you want to do, right? You know of 2 firms that are merging, so let's notify everyone. I think we can just cancel that, but let's finish reading. Notifying his firm of the new information so none of their clients are disadvantaged. Yeah, I think we can get rid of that. All I'm left with is C, and I can circle it and move on. I don't have a lot of time here, but I'm going to read it anyways. Placing the securities mentioned as part of the merger on the firm's restricted trading list. Well, there you go. So just by process of elimination, I can get to the answer without even knowing what the answer was. I just know for sure A and B are not. Valid strategy. Okay, next question. Pete, president of the local bank, has hired the bank's market maker, Vince, to seek a merger partner. Local is currently not listed on a stock exchange and has not reported that it is seeking strategic alternatives. Vince has discussed the possibility of a merger with several firms, but they have all decided to wait until the next period's financial data are available. The potential buyers believe the results will be worse than the results of the prior periods and will allow them to pay less for local bank. Pete wants to increase the likelihood of structuring a merger deal quickly. This question is worded slightly poorly, and let me show you where. Local is currently not listed on a stock exchange, which would give you the immediate impression that this is a private company. Let's be careful here. It says it has not reported that it's seeking strategic alternatives. If you're private, you don't have to report anything. They're waiting until next period's financial data. The merger candidates are looking for next period's financial data. Again, if you're private, you don't have to give that. So they are public. They're simply just not listed on a stock exchange. So they are a public firm, but they're not listed on a stock exchange. I wish, for me, as a writer, I would have made that a little bit more clear. I would have said local is currently a public company not listed on a stock exchange, and I would have been done. That would have cleared it up. It would have made the question not challengeable by anybody. Let's see what our options are. So which of the following actions would most likely be a violation of the code and standards? So we're not looking for the least now. Now we're looking for the most. We're looking for the most egregious action we could take. So we're looking to really break the code and standards. So let's look at how bad we can act. That's what that's asking us for here. Pete could instruct local bank to issue a press release announcing that it has retained Vince to find a merger partner. That doesn't sound bad. Companies do that all the time. That's just current information. So that's not most likely to violate a code and standard. I would say, I don't like that one. My choice will be between B and C. I already know that now. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. My choice is between B and C. Pete could place a buy order for 2,000 shares, which is 4 times the average weekly volume, through Vince for his personal account. Yeah, that'll violate the code and standards, so that's my winner so far, unless C is even worse than that. After confirming with local CFO, Pete could instruct local to issue a press release reaffirming the firm's prior announced earnings guidance for the full fiscal year. Well, again, that's really not that bad. He spoke with the CFO. CFO was good. Issuing a press release reaffirming the firm's prior announced earnings guidance, that's perfectly fine. If you look at publicly traded firms, earnings seasons is 4 times a year. We have earnings season in January. You have it in April, you have it in July, and in October. Typically, 3 to 4 weeks before earnings season are all the pre-announcements, where if a company is not going to make it, their earnings, they will pre-announce at that time so as not to surprise the market, because the market doesn't like surprises. So having something like this, a statement like this, that's really not that bad. Now, you may say, that doesn't sound right. It sounds like you're manipulating the market a bit. We're looking for most likely to be a violation. Do you think that issuing the press release reaffirming guidance or actually going out buying shares 4 times the average weekly volume and giving the impression of activity is more likely? I'm going to go with B. That's more likely. That's all we're looking for is most likely here. That looks like the worst thing I can do. Turns out that is the right one. Standard 2, B, market manipulation. ABC Investment Management acquires a new, very large account with 2 concentrated positions. The firm's current policy is to add new accounts for the purpose of performance calculation after the first full month of management. CUP is responsible for calculating the firm's performance returns. Before the end of the initial month, CUP notices that one of the significant holdings of the new account is acquired by another company causing the value of the investment to double. Because of this holding, CUP decides to account for the new portfolio as of the date of transfer, thereby allowing ABC Investment to reap the positive impact of that month's portfolio return. So there's our scenario, is that we should have waited a month. We got something handed to us that happened to perform. We didn't perform. We got something handed to us, and now we want to include it in to say that, hey, look, we're responsible for this too. Let's see what our options are. Okay, what have we got here? We have a did not violate, and a violate. I'm leaning more towards violate, so I think I'm going to choose C. I've got 2 did not violate. Now, if it were written the other way where I had 2 violateds and a did not, I would start with the violated ones first before I went to the did not. But here I have 3. I know I want C. I'm leaning towards a violate. I want to see if I can eliminate these. If I can eliminate these, I don't have to deal with this. CUP did not violate the code and standards because the GIPS standards allow composites to be updated on the date of large external cash flows. Well, here's the problem. New information. Nowhere in that little story did the company claim that it was GIPS compliant. Answer A is bringing in new information, GIPS compliancy. If this were important, in the body of what we read, it would have said the company claims GIPS compliance. Okay, well, now we have something to deal with. But it didn't claim that. Remember, that's voluntary. The company doesn't have to adopt the GIPS standards. That's voluntary. So we can't, this is new information. I can eliminate that. Great. I'm one step closer to being done here. CUP did not violate the code and standards because companies are allowed to determine when to incorporate new accounts into their composite calculations. That's true. This company has decided that it waits 1 month before it incorporates it, but it has a stated policy of waiting 1 month. So while it has decided when to incorporate it, it hasn't made an announcement that it's changed that. So you are free to say, well, we wait 2 months before we include it. But if you suddenly start including them after 1 month, you have to make an announcement and then restate all your other composites as if that had always been the policy. So that can't be right. What am I left with? Violated the code and standards because the inclusion of the new account produces an inaccurate calculation of the monthly results according to the firm's stated policies. So what we've done here is we've told our clients that, look, we wait a month and then we include it in, so they know how to interpret our numbers. Suddenly we didn't wait the month, we included it in, so the clients would be relying on a presentation number, a performance number, that doesn't actually reflect what we told them it reflects. So my instinct was right. They violated. I wanted to eliminate 2. This was easy to eliminate. This you had to know something, right? But that's what we're here for. We're here to know it. Canaan has been working. Canaan, I guess. Canaan. The names that they come up with are just some names I've never ever seen. Has been working from home on weekends and occasionally saves correspondence with clients and completed work on her home computer. Because of worsening market conditions, Cannon is one of several employees released by her firm. While Cannon is looking for a new job, she uses the files she saved at home to request letters of recommendation from former clients. She also provides to prospective clients some of the reports as examples of her abilities. Oh, I don't like that. So my eyes are drawn to that last one. So let's see what we have. We have 3 questions here. We have a violate, a did not violate, and a violate. I'm leaning more towards the violating. So let me see if I can eliminate B right away. Cannon did not violate the code and standards because the files were created and saved on her own time and computer. No, it doesn't matter. That I can eliminate that. My instinct was right. Great. Now I have a 50-50. Let's read A. Cannon is violating the code and standards because she did not receive permission from her former employer to keep or use the files. Okay, so far so good. Cannon violated the code and standards because she is prohibited from saving files on her home computer. Well, no, you're not prohibited from saving files, so I'm going to get rid of that one, and just by default alone, I'm going to choose A. This is standard 5C. Record retention. She needed the permission of her employer to maintain the files at home after her employment ended. Permission. Quinn sat for the Level 3 CFA exam this past weekend. He updates his resume with the following statement. In finishing the CFA program, I improved my skills related to researching investments and managing portfolios. I will be eligible for the CFA charter upon completion of the required work experience. Everything we're going to need is within the quotes. Let's see what we got. We have 3 answers here. We have a violated, a violate, and a did not violate. If you feel he violated, you can get rid of C. If you feel he did not violate, then try to eliminate A and B. Let's look at A. Quinn violated the code and standards by claiming he improved his skills through the CFA program. Well, no, that's the whole point of the CFA program, is to let the world know that you have improved skills. They want you to claim that. I do have improved skills. B. Quinn violated the code and standards by incorrectly stating that he is eligible for the CFA charter. That one probably sounds realistic to me, and here's why. Here's the big one. He sat for the exam this past weekend. And then he says, I'm done and I'll be eligible for my charter. Well, how do you know you passed? You don't know you passed. You can't. Until you know that you passed level 3, you haven't finished the program. You haven't finished yet. You don't know that. So he's saying something he doesn't know. That would be in violation. He's jumping the gun a little bit. So I'm more apt to go with this one. Let's read the last one. He did not violate the code and standards with his resume update. Well, I'm thinking that he did. My choice would be B. He doesn't know that he passed level 3, and he's claiming that he's finished and that he's eligible. So I think that's the problem there. Then this goes to standard 7B. 7B, reference the CFA Institute, the CFA designation, and the CFA program. What have we got? Quinn cannot claim to have finished the CFA program or be eligible for the CFA charter until he officially learns that he has passed the level 3. So there we go. During a round of golf, Rodney, I don't know anybody who names their kids Rodney anymore, so Rodney must be an older fellow. Rodney, CFO of Mega Retail, mentions to Hart, a local investment advisor and longtime personal friend, that Mega is having an exceptional sales quarter. Rodney expects the results to be 10% above the current estimates. The next day, Hart initiates the purchase of a large stake in the local exchange-traded retail fund for her personal account. A. Hart has violated the code and standards by investing in the exchange-traded fund that included Mega Retail. Then we have B and C are both did not violate. So let's see what they are, see if we can eliminate those. Hart did not violate the code and standards because she did not invest directly in securities of Mega Retail. And Rodney did not violate the code and standards because the comments made to Hart were not intended to solicit an investment in Mega Retail. Well, first of all, Rodney did violate the code and standards because he divulged material non-public information. So we can eliminate that one right away. So it's a matter of did they violate or did they not violate. The tricky part is that Hart is not buying Mega Retail. Hart is buying an exchange-traded fund that includes Mega Retail. But what happens when you buy an ETF that includes a Mega Retail? You're still benefiting from material non-public information. The B says did not violate because she did not invest directly in securities of Mega Retail. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate that and say there's probably a violation because her action to do this is directly related to the information that she got. Had she not got this information, she wouldn't have done it. So it's not how she's acting on material non-public information. It is that she is acting on material non-public information. Let me give you an example of acting on of being able to act on material non-public information and completely avoid the securities of a particular company. Let's say there are 3 companies in an industry, and company A, there's company A, B, and company C. And company A and B are going to merge, and that merger is going to create a powerhouse that's just going to destroy C. So I hear about A and B merging, and I short the stocks of C. Well, I haven't touched A or B. I haven't left any footprints in the snow. I haven't done anything. Now you may think that, well, you've just concluded that C would die if this thing happened, but I was privy to information about this merger. This is material, and it's non-public, and I acted upon that non-public information. So it is not how I act that's a violation. It is that I act that is a violation. I acted, it's a violation. I didn't touch A or B. So this can't possibly be right. You did not invest directly in securities of Mega Retail. It's not how you act, it's that you did act that's the violation. All right, lots of reading here. Park is very frustrated after taking her level 2 exam. While she was studying for the exam, to supplement the curriculum provided, she ordered study material from a third-party provider. Park believes that the additional material focused her attention on specific topics that were not tested while ignoring other areas. She posts the following statement on the provider's discussion board. And again, when you have quotes, pay attention to that. The clue to the answer is usually within the quotes. I am very dissatisfied with your firm's CFA program level 2 material. Okay, nothing wrong so far. I found the exam extremely difficult and myself unprepared for the specific questions after using your product. Nothing wrong there. How could your service provide such limited instructional resources on the analysis of inventories and taxes when the exam had multiple questions about them? Aha, I got a problem. I will not recommend your product to other CFA candidates. So my problem is that she's being very specific about the types of questions that were on the exam. Very specific. So let's see what our options are. A. Park violated the code and standards by purchasing third-party review materials. Well, no, that can't possibly be right. In fact, it's so wrong, the CFA Institute actually charges third-party providers to access the material to prepare their material to sell. You got to pay an annual fee, and it's not cheap. So that's not a violation at all. We can eliminate that. Park violated the CE code and standards by providing her opinion on the difficulty of the exam. Hey, you are free to do that. You are absolutely free to do that. By default, all I have left is C because the first two failed to impress me. Park violated the code and standards by providing specific information of topics tested on the exam. This was an easy question. Paper was recently terminated as one of a team of 5 managers of an equity fund. So weird names that the Institute comes up Paper, but you know what? This is an international exam, international, so that may be a name in a different country, pronounced differently. So if it's Paper or whatever, I'm pronouncing it wrong. Understand that to me, I've never seen anybody with a name like this, and here in Canada, that's Paper. Anyways, I'm not meaning to insult anyone by pronouncing the name as Paper when it's pronounced any other way. I just don't know how to. Let's get back to the question here. The fund had 2 value-focused managers and terminated one of them to reduce costs. In a letter sent to prospective employers, Paper presents, with written permission of the firm, the performance history of the fund to demonstrate his past success. A. Paper did not violate the code and standards. B. Paper violated the code and standards by claiming the performance of the entire fund as his own. Or C. Paper violated the code and standards by including the historical results of his prior employer. Well, that one I can get rid of. I can get rid of that altogether because all performance is historical results. All performance is, so I can get rid of that one. So I'm left with a choice of did they violate or did not violate. The second one sounds logical, claiming the performance of the entire fund as his own. So I'm apt to say, yeah, that's probably the answer there. Paper presents with written permission of the firm the performance history of the fund to demonstrate his past success. So I'm more apt to pick B. Townsend was recently appointed to the board of directors of a youth golf program that is the local chapter of a national not-for-profit organization. The program is beginning a new fundraising campaign to expand the number of annual scholarships it provides. Townsend believes that many of her clients make annual donations to charity. The next week in her regular newsletter to all clients, she includes a small section discussing the fundraising campaign and her position on the organization's board. So what do we have? Townsend did not violate, violated, and violated. I'm apt to think that she didn't violate, but let's go ahead and read anyways. I want to select A, but let's just see if B and C sound logical, because ethics sometimes can be tricky. When you think that there's nothing wrong, suddenly there's a huge problem, right? B, Townsend violated the code and standards by soliciting donations from her clients through the newsletter. Well, it doesn't say that here. It says that she put a small section discussing the fundraising campaign and her position. She's not asking for money. This is new information. It's drawing a conclusion that solicitation is going on when it's not. Townsend violated the code and standards by not getting approval of the organization before soliciting her clients. Again, there's the word soliciting. She's not soliciting. She's simply just putting in the newsletter a small section discussing the fundraising campaign and her position on the organization's board. That's all she's doing. A, I don't think she's violating this at all.